It's really been a while since I've done a forbidden film review, and I've gotten a couple of requests to do a review of the film that I consider to be the absolute most disturbing I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of stuff over the years, and if I had to pick one, with a couple of caveats, I think it'd probably be Philosophy of the Night from 2008, directed by Andrei Eskanov. Before I kind of go into what the film is about, I'll give you my criteria for what makes a film disturbing. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm disqualifying two types of film. No documentaries, so stuff like Orozco the Embalmer or Traces of Death or any of that stuff didn't qualify for me because I think it's a separate genre. And I decided to not allow any quasi-pornographic stuff, so no Psycho the Snuff Reels or all that fun material. If you haven't seen Philosophy of the Knife, I think it's probably the most disturbing film you'll ever see. For one primary reason, it just goes on for so long. When I say it goes on forever, I mean it goes on forever. Even if, quantitatively it may not be the worst, but just in terms of just sheer scope, the magnitude, it's a torture session. It goes on for 4.5 hours. And I think that's really like the trumping card that this film has over all the competitors. It's the fact that it just drains the life out of you. This is one of the most amazing experiences I've had with a film probably in the last 10 or 15 years. In fact, I don't think I've actually really felt the way that I did after watching this film than I have with any film previously. Not to say that you're going to enjoy the film, not to say that it's a truly great film in any regard, but I think overall it's a very, entertaining is not really the right word. It's a very engrossing movie. In fact, it's an engrossing movie that will gross you out a lot. To kind of give you an idea what the film is about, basic plot synopsis, is it's a film about General Issues Unit 731. If you don't know much about your Pacific Theater World War II history, it kind of goes like this. The Japanese invade Manchuria. If you ever read Iris Chang's The Rape of Nanking, some horrible stuff went down. And one of the most horrible things was there was sort of like an analog to, the Auschwitz, Joseph Mengele experiments going on in Germany. Over in Manchuria, you had Japanese scientists basically, kidnapping and taking prisoners of war and doing really horrific medical experiments on them. And this film basically is a 4.5 hour exercise in some of the worst documented practices. Now, a lot of people are going to say, is this film really 100% historically accurate? Is it like Men Behind the Sun or what was that other film? I can't remember. There's another one. Crap, I'll come back to you. There's also one of those like Hong Kong Category 3 films. And the thing is, there's probably some artistic liberties going on here, and I think there's always, especially in the fog of war, you have incidents where things kind of get elevated and probably, taken out of context and really given loftier numbers than they actually occurred. That said, most stuff in here I think is pretty well supported by documentation. Did it exactly happen the way it transpired? Probably not. But then again, I think if you really looked at what happened in history, if you actually read some World War II material, you realize the things that go on in films like this are nothing compared to the atrocities that have actually been perpetrated by humanity in the 20th century. So, is it far-fetched? Yeah. Is it too far-fetched? Probably not. So anyway, the film is interesting to me because it's something of a combination exploitation film, an avant-garde music video, and a quasi-reliable, character-driven documentary. And I know that sounds like a really mixed bag, and it is. And it's not really the most professional thing in the world. Like, the narrator for the movie is incredibly he sounds really like effeminate. Not that it's a bad thing, it's just the way it is. You can tell it's a guy putting on a feminine voice. Like, that's not how he actually speaks. So he sounds like a really evil German curator. And it's just kind of taking me out a little. It kind of makes it seem a little less than sincere. As far as the filmmakers, whether they really wanted to make a great, accurate film about what went on in Unit 731, or they just want to make a really gross special effects demo. Probably they want to make more of a gross special effects demo, more than they did an actual historical document. But that said, just the way the film is made, I mean, it's one of those things where it's hard to really pinpoint what its greatness truly is. But I really, really like this film. It's just unlike anything I've ever seen before. It's just like this weird combination, this experimental blend that I don't think you'll probably get a chance to see probably ever again. Very rarely do films this ambitious and this bizarre and this just completely unrestrained get financed and produced and actually go out there to a wide audience. Alright, so all this stuff out of the way, what should you expect when you watch this film? In the 4.5 hours of mayhem, here's what you have. You have people with severe frostbite. They throw water on them out in the middle of these crazy winters, and they just freeze, and they go in and beat their skin off. It's hilarious, let me tell you. There's a person who is skinned alive, like flayed alive, not dead, like laid on a table and the skin is removed, like Hellraiser style. And I don't know if you know the context of it, but it involves a cockroach, and the less said about that, the better. There's a scene where a dude is depressurized, maybe not as bad as the scene in Men Behind the Sun, but it's still pretty gross. The aforementioned cockroach scene, there's a scene where they have, there's lots of actual footage of like diseased bodies. Like, yeah, I don't want to go into it, but they come in. Oh, especially what is really, really creepy to me is there are like parts that actually show deformed children, like people that were born with like, conjoined heads and things and multiple legs, and it just looks incredibly unnerving because you have this mixture of the fantastic and the cinematic, and then you have the historical in there, and it just creates a really creepy ambiance and atmosphere. There's a scene where they set phosphorus bombs off on a dude's face. A couple of x-ray scenes complete with real-life pictures of tumors. So, of course, make sure you have the pizza nearby when you watch this film. There's a scene where a prisoner has all of her teeth removed and her tongue cut off, kind of like Old Boy, except probably a little worse. This film will teach you everything you want to know about syphilis, whether you want to know it or not. And I'm not going to say anything more about that. There's up-close artery slicing. There's a scene where the dude's in a gas chamber. There's a scene where a guy has back surgery and chunks of his spine are just cut out, which I've never actually seen before. That's kind of, that's a new one. And of course, I think the big kicker here is most films don't even go near the topic of abortion. Like, you never actually really see abortion scenes in films. Well, Philosophy of Knife, we're not really dealing with your normal filmmakers here, because not only do we have an abortion sequence in this film, we have 3. That's right. That's almost like an abortion scene every half an hour and a half. So there you go. That's what you're working with, Philosophy of Knife. Final comments on the film. Like I said, I really enjoyed it, and it's kind of hard to explain why. I'd probably do like an essay about it. To get really snooty and quasi-APA on you to really explain why I think it's not exploitation and just basically pointless sleaze. But if you haven't seen it, take a day off, have a really crappy weekend where you're feeling bad about the world and it's all moody and rainy and you got some nachos nearby, and just sit back, and then afterwards go out and actually do some history, do some research. Read about Unit 731 and General Ishii and the occupation of Nanking and all these really underreported atrocities of the World War II era. And that's pretty much it. Directed by a guy named Andrei Eskanov, with a really weird techno goth soundtrack. And oh, by the way, the cinematography is mostly in black and white, so if that is a deal breaker, just telling you that's in the film. So there you go, Philosophy of Knife, my pick for most disturbing motion picture I've ever seen thus far, but you know what? I'm always open to suggestions and ideas. Alright, until then, keep it evil, folks. Keep it evil.